Sustainable e-commerce logistics. Joining us today to speak about that is Dan Nevin, General Manager at Inmar Post-Purchase Solutions. Dan, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Russell.
Dan, let's talk about improvement in that area of e-commerce logistics. What do we need to do in order to bring about something much better than what's been going on in these COVID years here? What do you say?
Yeah. So I think coming to this event, Home Delivery World, what's been great is to see actually a significant amount of new businesses, older businesses improving the way that they work, specifically around things like electric vehicles, to improve sustainability as it pertains to the last and first mile logistics, middle mile, in fact, the whole thing. But I don't think, what I can tell here is that isn't around the corner. We don't have fleets of millions of vehicles roaming the streets right now of electric vehicles. So what can we do in the meantime? And in the meantime, I think the answer is simply less miles, right? How do we fulfill e-commerce? How do we handle returns? By simply reducing the amount of miles that we put on the road. And so we take advantage of people, I think, who are already, grocery shopping and doing their kind of everyday, and they're already making trips to places. So it stands to reason that they can be actually picking up items rather than having things delivered to their door. They can be making returns at more convenient locations and doing things that we would call consolidated trips. So by doing that, we can actually reduce the number of miles that it takes to fulfill e-commerce. Specifically, as I think the specific report from Pitney Bowes recently would show that in 2026, we're going to see an increase of parcel volume to a number of more than 300 billion parcels delivered that year. So, that's a significant increase as to where we are today, and it's just around the corner. So if we can just reduce the number of miles that it takes to actually fulfill e-commerce, then we'll be doing a lot to improve sustainability in the space.
That must be good news to those operators who are thinking that I cannot afford to invest in a whole new fleet of electric vehicles. So if there's a way that I can utilize what I have but reduce the number of miles that we are driving, maybe down the road I can start thinking about, bringing in some other types of vehicles, but not right now. Good news. Well, I guess the question is, why are we not making enough progress in this space? Now, what's going on there?
Yeah. So it comes down to the consumer, I think, at the end of the day. The consumer has to make the right choice. They have to make the sustainable choice. So I think we can all make those options available for, instead of home delivery, we can make PUDO, pick up and drop off networks available, which have been very successful in countries like Poland, South Africa, many countries around the world. A little bit more challenging in the US, geographically, much larger country, lower population density, but absolutely achievable. But discoverability of those networks is very low right now. We're not telling customers that they can use those networks. We're not showing them that they're the most cost-effective and sustainable way for them to be kind of buying their items online. Some businesses are doing a great job of that. Amazon do a great job at that. They're presenting right at the checkout, all of the options in which a customer can use to either make a return or to receive their items. And in many cases, that they're making the most cost-effective and greenest option the default option for their customers. I think if we can all do that, if every business, e-commerce business out there, we're using these networks for fulfillment and diversifying their, let's say, their fulfillment mix, but then making that available easy to their customers, we would see more customer adoption. So it really comes down to customer adoption and awareness for that customer to actually adopt those solutions. If we don't do that, then we'll be building these networks and we won't be, seeing that adoption and the benefits of reducing the miles for, fulfillment and returns.
Dan, let me be a contrarian for just a moment here. If I have a sustainability initiative, I am hurting my profitability. True or false?
I think it completely incorrect, but a very true misconception, so to speak, right? So, you think sustainability, you think, well, I have to change all my process, and that's gonna come at a significant cost to me that I can't afford today. I'll push it out to next year and so on. But what we're talking about actually is, if I can divert 5% of my outbound orders to a alternative to home delivery, and I can have customers pick that up, well, we're starting to reduce porch piracy, right? That final mile, there's a lot of surcharges in that final mile. There's a lot of cost in that final mile. And in fact, probably 80% of the entire supply chain cost is in that final mile. So by just reducing that by 5%, or having 5% of my customers pick up from an alternative, to home delivery, it has exponentially more value to me than 5%. And it actually didn't come at an incremental cost, right? I just have to make that, I have to adopt a network, and I have to make that available. Now for returns as well, we're talking about very, very simple steps like digitalizing returns instead of sending out prepaid, returns labels, for example, that are very expensive. They harm the environment. These labels, they're not, biodegradable, or they're certainly not recyclable. And so if I can take that away, I'm saving labor. I'm digitalizing the process, and the great thing about digitalizing the process, now I start to learn more about my returns. I actually can prevent returns, not by harming the customer experience, but by learning why returns are happening and really solving them at the top of the funnel. And so actually, by taking the sustainable approach, you can significantly impact your bottom line for the positive. And of course, you can actually increase your top line, because many customers nowadays are making their decisions on how they purchase through the most sustainable methods.
True.
And so getting ahead of that today is really important, I think, from a growth perspective, not just a bottom line.
Dan, final question. Briefly, tell us, for anyone who is unfamiliar with Inmar Post-Purchase Solutions, just what is that? What does it do? And how is it optimizing the operations of your customer base? So walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So actually this year we formed Inmar Post-Purchase Solutions, which is a joint venture between Inmar Intelligence and Doddle, an international technology company focused on the first and final mile. We brought these two companies together to really solve everything that relates to the post-purchase experience, from the moment a customer makes a purchase and the visibility around that, all the way through to when that item has to be returned, how it's returned, how convenient it is, how sustainable we handle that return. Inmar handles more than 600 million returns a year, and we keep 99% of that out of landfill. So there's really no other business in North America that competes on that level. But what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to attack the full post-purchase experience. We want to actually reduce returns where we can. We want to be able to make sure that when we do receive returns, we know exactly what that return is, so we can handle it in the most cost-effective, sustainable way. We can get it back into inventory. We want to be able to provide those convenient returns locations, so we're partnering with some of the great brands, retailers in the country today, to be able to handle pickup and drop off, to drive customers into locations that they should be visiting anyway, to reduce that final mile. So we're really kind of putting our money where our mouth is by forming this joint venture this year, and it's been a really positive year so far, and we're excited to kind of talk about everything that's come out of that over the next 12 months.
Great information. Dan, thank you so much for finding the time to sit down and speak with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's Dan Nevin, Inmar Post-Purchase Solutions, speaking with us today about sustainable e-commerce logistics. Thanks for watching.